Hello, my name's Dr. Goerig, and what I want to do is talk to you about retiring in practice and what I call the ACE process. But I learned this philosophy when I first started. I had an old dentist that retired at actually age 82, but he was still practicing when I was there, and I used to do a lot of his root canals on him. And he used to send quite a few patients to me also. And when in his 90s, and I was asking him, I said, look, you retired at age 82. You spent 55 years in dentistry, mostly stand-up chairs and things like that. How did you manage that? He said, well, when I first started, I was working 5 days a week like all my other classmates. In the 50s, we had plenty of dentistry and decay. He said then one of my classmates told me I could change my schedule around and go to 4 days a week, which I did. And actually I made just as much money in 4 days a week. And then I wasn't a real big spender, so within 5 or 6 years I became debt-free. And then I said, well, I don't need to work this hard, so I might as well just work 3 days a week. And I went to 3 days a week. I made just about as much money in 3 days a week. And then I started taking 2 weeks off. Eventually I was taking 10 weeks off a year, working 3 days a week. I mean, I retired in practice over actually 45 years ago. And it has been great, and I love my patients, and as a general dentist I don't have to be there all the time because I have you. If I have emergencies, I just call them or send them over to you. So the power of retiring in practice sort of begins with a strong vision and knowing that we can reduce down. Now in endodontics it's a little different because we have to have someone in that practice 5 days a week. We have to be always open and willing to take their patients. That's why it's important to have an associate. But you cannot get an associate, and this is what's called sort of the ACE process, until you're collecting enough money so that you have enough to pay the associate, but you have enough to take home, and you don't lose significant amount of your net. If you're only producing $800,000, you bring an associate, you're going to lose half your net, and the associate's going to leave because he's not making any money. So the ideal point right now I look at is about 1.4 million in collection. Our job in endomastery is to get clients to 1.4 million, help them bring in an associate. As soon as you do that, you move to 3 days a week, take a week off each month, and your associate comes in, can work 3 or 4 days, but then that year you will probably jump up anywhere and do an extra $800,000 or $1 million a year. And ideally, then you continue to grow to be a $3 million practice. Basically, you're working 125 days a year, and you can be taking over 7 figures a year. And that's pretty much the process. But it all begins with determination to have the practice the way you want, and the determination to only work a little bit of time. Because when I'm working with these doctors, the biggest thing they wish they could have is more time with their families and time to be off. And this allows them to do that. And normally when we worked with these doctors in this process, our clients since in 2017, they returned an average increase in their collections, which is basically net, of over $467,000, which is basically 6 times the investment they made through this process. And once you get in this whole process of retiring in practice, then you might even cut down to 2 days, bring another associate. And then if you get to a point where you really don't like what you're doing, but actually when you're working 3 or 4 days a week, or 2 to 3 days a week, it's kind of fun, then you never sell your practice. You bring another associate in, and you're what's called retire out of practice, which means you go to the office, a couple hours a month, and look at the numbers and check things out, make sure things are running right. You have the right team members running it. So it's basically solo practitioner, retire in practice with associate, bring in multiple associates, and then you can move out and not even be in your practice if you want. Your practice is a gold mine. Don't walk away from it. All right. Well, thank you for listening.